Right, I'm turning on the camera, not entirely sure what this is going to be, but today in front of me I have the LEGO Ideas Treehouse and the LEGO Legend of Zelda Great Deku Tree. Yeah, both 2-in-1 models, both very important for LEGO trees, and obviously one licensed, one not so licensed. And I cited in my Deku Tree review, my very long review, that I thought this tree would be a really interesting comparison, and then nigh on a year later I built a tree, and a Deku Tree is built side by side, and I wanted to take a look at them as LEGO trees. This isn't a formalized comparison so much, but more so just talking about what I think is interesting about the two of them, what I think they share in common, and whether I think there's been a clear evolution, because at the time I was pretty confident that this was going to feel a little bit dated compared to this. However, now that I'm looking at it, I'm almost wondering if the trees are not holding up, but then again, they're trying to be very different things. So I'm going to ramble, we're going to have a look at it, and I really don't know what this is going to turn into. First thing that came to mind as I was carrying them over is stability, of course. The treehouse, one of my favorite things about it is that it's really strong. Specifically, it has to be, right? Because it's huge. It's taller than the Deku Tree. It should be. It's got an extra 700 pieces or so. But I can just grab this. It's a hefty model, but it's an interesting lift. But it's chunky, it's strong, it's got this really strong core to it that looks like bark as well, and then sort of flattens out. And obviously this is trying to be sort of your oak, your very upright tree, whereas this is a magical talking tree. I really love the sort of texturing that's going on here, and I think it is aided by the cabins that mean this looks less weird as you go up, because if you really think about it, it's quite a sort of a jagged, bare shape. Trees are sort of awkward, and I go to the Sequoia Bricklink Designer Program set for an example of what I think a new 2025 style trunk is gonna sort of look like. Knock the candles off here. Similarly with stability on this model, it's the base. It's a plate brick, but it is sort of engaged into the terrain. We've got this cut through the water here, which is my favorite part of it because it really makes it feel like a slice of life. And I've actually, talking structure, put the orange ones on here because this is also a 2-in-1 between the autumn and the spring colors. Obviously this one also a 2-in-1 between the Ocarina and the Breath of the Wild, simultaneously changing leaf colors. We're going to come back to that because that is, I feel, the biggest area of comparison. Stability wise for this one, we've got the base, plate layer plate again, but this time with the black display style base, which works for it. Would have been curious as to what this would have been like on it, but yeah, this fits. It's really crisp and clean. Similarly, for picking up, you have the ability just to grab it by the trunk. I've turned it sideways just to make it easier. As I discussed in the review, there is that sort of slip up and that sort of sponginess to it, which I guess is kind of there if you press on these angled ones, but like these core ones are so strong. But that being said, they're both incredibly stable, which I think is a commonly missed idea when it comes to LEGO trees. Is they've really got to be grabbable, because all this up here is, yeah, look, it's all fluffy. Up here, oh god, wouldn't want to touch that at all. And you're going to knock bits like this off, which is a downside to this, is it's much bigger than its base, which is a problem that this one sort of solved by having this bit stick out the back here, meaning that all of this is not going to get faffed around with the wall. But that doesn't really feel like a fair comparison as such, as they're trying to do different things. Yeah, I think people aren't talking about how fundamental it is that both of these can be grabbed so easily. They're both designed to be models that are played around, but the tree is sort of core to the play here, whereas these guys are mostly supposed to sort of exist around the outside. This is definitely, they're both large display trees, but this one definitely could be played with. This one can also be played with and does obviously have the action functions, but it feels more like party trick play rather than like actual genuine play. That Skulltula in there is fantastic. But yeah, that's not really what I wanted to compare them. I wanted to compare them both on color palette, over how they do as a tree, and then also talk about the branches. However, another fun little comparison point is the figure selection. So we've got 4 figures here for the Deku Tree, 3 Links and a Zelda, and then we have the family of 4 spread around the tree house with the dad, the mum, the son, and the daughter down here. 4 figures for both. Just thought it was interesting. But the meat of what I wanted to talk about, previously in the review I had mentioned that this was a brown color scheme. This works really well at the time. I still think this works in 2025. This was a 2019 model, as one of the best standalone LEGO trees ever done. However, I talked about the fact that these muddy textures really go to creating that bark texture that matches the Deku Tree. However, does it match real life trees? I really like how this sort of comes together, and it really looks good from a distance like that, but I have to admit that I think trunk wise this guy still wins. not only because of the rounding and just sort of that stereotypical image. If you think about what kids think of when they think of trees, it is curve up and a big bushy bit on the top. This does sort of a trapezoid shape, whereas this does do that curve. Although, as I mentioned, I think this is significantly helped by the placement of these cabins. I don't want to take it off. Let's do it anyway. Boom. Okay. I think it looks significantly more barren. Now, obviously, they would change how they did these because they wouldn't have to be sort of a cabin, like a flat space for it here. But with me opening that up more, you can sort of see what I mean about it being a massive tree that loses some of sort of its refinement. And I thought that was what was going to make this one excel. However, they're both kind of not really trees is my takeaway. And I don't really think they're very different in that regards. Which color palette do I prefer? I don't. It is equal. This is a different type of tree to this. So this point of comparison, almost completely moot. It doesn't change anything, and I think I'm going to regret taking that off now. It's just shove it up there. I'm sure I won't pick up the tree in a second, and that'd be a problem. The foliage is the big one, right? Like, let's go up. Okay, this is a complete canopy. This is also a complete canopy. But this is using this classic limb element piece that we've had for decades and decades and decades. And at the time, it was like, yeah, duh, this is the most obvious way to do it. This is the way to do it. And I really like how it looks from a sort of side on because it is layered. And I also think that it's nice and full on the top with a little bit of a gap in the middle. From a distance, I'm not so sure. It kind of just feels like a color mess. Maybe I should have put the green leaves on to do this comparison. I'm certainly not changing them now. Yeah, I don't know, it just doesn't work for me as well as this does. I know a lot of people have complained about the boldness, specifically the Breath of the Wild one, but having those old leaf pieces in there, but then decorated up with the newer layer ones and then the stem pieces, which I know they're mostly for structural stability, but adding in that third color and then the three prongs, it feels much more rich, much more detailed. It's posed much more naturally like a canopy. The nature of it being the Ocarina tree, not the Breath of the Wild tree, means you lose that woodland effect, because in the other version you've got trees that sort of come up to here, which really help sell that tree element. But as sort of this sort of bushy overall vibe, this definitely is an upgrade. You can see 6 years of design improvements here, specifically on the branching and the way the leaves are done, and just making use of those new elements. Real vibe with where trees are heading. I have another example of that, which comes from a really stupid place, which is this here, this gift with purchase that I'm selling because I'm not that interested in it. But those trees look infinitely better than many other trees their scale because they're just making use of newer, glossier pieces, not these ones. And it might just be a recency bias thing, but I just think that they fill out the branches much more. So let's chuck that away. So yeah, not as clear cut as I thought. Not as clear cut as I thought it would be. Definitely. Canopy is an improvement, specifically on this version. The Breath of the Wild one, maybe not as much. Again, very little difference there. Trees haven't changed as much as I thought. I expected this to feel bad. There are aspects of this that I think do feel slightly dated, but as a Lego model, as an impressive sort of shelf piece, this still stands up really well. This is aging really well as a set, but as pinnacle of Lego tree, not so sure. I'm thinking both fall a little bit short. Then obviously not on all trees, they're large trees. So again, to sort of clarify, both aging well as sets, this one aging better than this one. This still feels really fresh and new, even though it's a year old now, but starting to show a little bit of age as the system moves forward and as the novelty wears off. But again, not much, we're talking very, very subtle. This definitely showing 6 years of age, still looks fantastic. This one still looks fantastic, not aging as fast. But as Lego trees go, both of them not holding up as well as I thought. I thought this was the pinnacle of Lego trees a year ago. Don't feel that way right now. Not that I have a better tree to point at and say is better. It just doesn't feel as much of a Lego tree. And that's because it's not trying to be a tree. It's trying to be a talking tree. And a talking tree, it does a good job. Especially Breath of the Wild version does this better. So this is, again, not fair. This looks amazing. It's gorgeous. I knew it was gorgeous. That's why I bought it, because I love it. I love the flow of it. Again, I could talk about this set, and of course, the fact it looks good from 360, and you've got all these paths. It's very Robinson Crusoe-esque. I see it looks even great from that angle. It's great. Real pop of color. Really love the fact that you can change out the leaves. Really works well on this one. another similarity between the two. Basically, I don't know. I like both my giant trees. I like them for different reasons. I think this one has not as many flaws as I maybe proclaimed last year. Wasn't really looking forward to putting it together any more than I usually do. Just because I think it's aging. It's aging, but it's aging well, and it looks really great on display. But just different things. But this is interesting. It's interesting in that way of heart. They're comparable, but look also not comparable at the same time. So I'm going to wrap this because otherwise I'm just going to keep rambling, but I want you to know that I'm still thinking about it. I still think this is a valid comparison. I'm interested to see how many of you agree, how many of you disagree. I think there's a clear timeline here. There's clear improvements here. But then when I think about the Breath of the Wild version not having that kind of branch system, I realize that they are more similar than we thought. And they are about as sparse as we thought. This feels old. This feels new. Neither color scheme feels right. This feels tree. This feels like a not tree because it's talking tree. But this, if that was in this color scheme, this would look ugly. But like, this works, but it's also such a brightness upgrade compared to the original idea submission. But I can't even imagine what this would be like with the original color scheme because it was basically like all dark brown, maybe black, which is like, ick, don't like that. Lego trees, they're struggling. The firs, they've got down. The palm trees, they've got down. The birch trees, they have a technique for. It doesn't mean I like it, but because it's fragile, but it works. The leaves we're struggling with. I like this. This is my canopy. I still stand by that this is the better canopy. This does a better job than I remember. Let me know, guys. This is weird. Yeah, fascinating. Fascinating little Lego, but I don't have anything else to say. So let me know your thoughts down below, and I hope you thought this was worth time because this is interesting, even though I can't put my words on it. Have a wonderful rest of your day. Bye-bye.